Hello and welcome to Bunny the Divine's vlog. This is the very first one from this project, and I have no idea how often I'll post. It will depend on inspiration, of course, which is exactly the topic of today's video. I'm I've been a performer for 2021 to 22, 22 to 23, about almost 3 years now. My very first stage performance was on September 2021, right after Corona. I was preparing, right before it, but of course, then Corona happened, and then it didn't. As Corona happened, a lot of things didn't happen, as we know. However, I did have a couple of other performances before, um, online mostly. I was actually at the Croatian Burlesque Festival, and that was amazing. I'll always be grateful for that, and I can't wait to go next year live, in person. But anyway, this is my background as a showgirl and burlesque performer. And the reason why I'm creating this vlog is to share what it is like to have a life like that, to share everything that feels like it's fun to share. Or I'm also very petty with a lot of things, so you might get some videos on the things that really get to me, even if I know they're like not really big or special, but still, I have my complaints. And since I started, I've performed home. So I'm from Switzerland. I've performed in several different countries in Europe, and I'll be performing soon in Asia as well. And I plan to perform in the US very soon, maybe next year. These big trips are different, right? When you're in Europe, everything, if you're from Europe, everything is so close. It's so easy. You can just book a 1 hour flight, or sometimes you can even take the train, and you are in another country, in another capital, and you can perform. When you want to go to another continent, it's first, I'm a traveling showgirl, meaning I love to travel. I don't want to be going to the US for a weekend, just to perform. I want to make sure that I have time to go a few days before, get rid of jet lag, have a look around, eat, drink, have fun, perform, and then stay for another few days. I have to make it like a 2 week trip. So it's not something that I can just, decide, okay, I'll go next week, because I'm also a studio owner and a coach. And of course, I have my business here. I have my classes planned. I have my schedule planned. So it has to be planned in advance. There you go. So today, I want to talk about inspiration. And that came to me because I teach a solo development class. And as the first class, that's what I like to talk about. I have newcomers, performers from all kinds of backgrounds. So some actually are performers already, and they're just looking to have an environment where they can flourish and produce, like more acts. Some are totally new. They just literally came to class one day, to my regular class, and they were like, "Wow, that sounds like fun. I'll do it." Some of them don't even have stage names yet. So, having said that, inspiration. Um, at this very moment that I'm recording this, I have about, I would say, four acts, three really established that I love and If anything, I'm upgrading and refining, but they're done. I've danced them a couple of times. I'm pretty happy with the way they are. And I've got also one that's halfway and the second one that's also halfway. I've done some impro on that, but not a lot, as in I'm not happy with it right now. And of course, I have quite a few in my head. And first thing I want to say is most performers I know, they are pretty much, regardless of how long they've been performing, on the same path. They have about 3 to 5 acts that they perform regularly because they're their signature acts. And they have another 3 to 5 in the making at very different stages. They might be working on a costume, they might be working on a concept, they might be working on a prop or whatever. Sometimes it's just in our heads. Just the other day, I saw this very established performer. She's been like performing for at least 12 years, I think. And she was like, "Yeah, finally this costume is coming together, and I've been developing this act or at different, like levels, and it has been in my head for the past 10 years." Of course, we have other kinds of performers. We have people who have just started and have a very successful um, 1 or 2 acts. I'm sure they're developing something as well, either way. Or we have performers who are just very, very prolific. Prolific, I think that's the word. They have dozens of acts. That can also happen. But I would say that most people I know are in the average is where I just told you 3 to 5 and another 3 to 5 in the making. um, then inspiration. I would say first that it can come from anywhere and it can come from any different place. It's just inspiration is a lot about being alive. If you're alive, if you're living your life and you're not inspired, it's just because you're not paying attention. If you pay attention, you're gonna be inspired. Do whatever you do. All of us, I feel like, even if you work in something that doesn't require you necessarily to be creative, remember first the work is not everything in our lives. I'm sure you have a side of you that has some creative outlet or wants to, maybe a hobby or something. If you pay attention, you're going to be inspired, not necessarily, of course, to be on stage, but you're going to be inspired to do something and develop something and create something in your art. We are very good as human beings at recognizing patterns. You probably have seen already when we do, when you have to prove you're human, and they want you to see stuff. And why you know this image is like, God, excuse me, this is obvious. But to be really honest, it's not that obvious. It's very difficult to teach a machine to be able to recognize patterns and differentiate patterns as well as a human being does. One of the really cool things that I find this topic fascinating. And one of the cool things is just think about it, like, can you describe a dog? And like, of course you can describe a dog, like it has it has 4 paws. Most of the time, it has like some hair, like fur, 2 eyes, a nose, and well, ears, mostly at the top of their head. It walks in all fours. And right now, can you describe a cat? And you're probably gonna say most of the same. Maybe you're gonna add whiskers, or something, and very dangerous paws. But anyway, it would be very difficult to find ways to describe. And remember, computer is language. You have to tell the computer things. Of course, nowadays we also feed the computer stuff, and that's how they learn. But still, but I really doubt that you would ever, ever, ever confuse a cat for a dog. You would always be able to tell a cat from a dog, even if you find it very hard to tell the difference when you have to explain it. So, having all of this inside of us, and if you just breathe and watch, observe, and pay attention, you're gonna be inspired all the time. You can be outside taking your bus to work and just looking through the window, and you're gonna see something that you can translate to whatever creative outlet you have. In my case, as a performer, it translates into ideas to perform, into this is what I want to show people on stage. And for me, a lot comes from my kind of geek side. I'm a big geek. And I have this, I was one day, I have this picture. I was at the Universal Studios in Japan. And like Universal Studios has, it's huge, enormous. And it has different areas. So you have Mario World, which, by the way, if you are a Mario fan, I highly recommend. It feels like you're walking into a Mario video game. Really, really, it's so cool, so cool. And then they have a Harry Potter world, and everything. And of course, they have Hello Kitty, right? And for Hello Kitty, they had a cafe, a shop, and something else, for small kids. And then I remember just walking there, and then they had at this window this dress, and the dress is made out of Hello Kitty, small, like teddy bears. Some were just the head, but some were actually her full body, and they were all stuck together into balls. And this dress was like a princess cut kind of dress at the top, and then you had Hello Kitties here, and then on the skirts you had this balls, like stuck together, and then I don't know, 10 of these balls just made up the skirt, and it was like a cocktail dress. And I was like, that's fantastic. I immediately I started to think, did I bring enough space in my luggage? Should I buy another one where I can just buy, like hundreds of Hello Kitties, and I can recreate this dress so I can perform with that? And actually, it didn't take off yet. Because again, this is something that's in my head. That's an inspiration I had that I still remember. It's been now a year and a half since this happened. And I know that eventually it will happen. Eventually, I will find the time and the will so that the pieces will come together. And that's very interesting, creating an act and being inspired, because pieces come together from different places, but also at different times. So again, our brains are very complex. You're gonna have things scattered everywhere. So as I told you, just as I was creating this class, this dress came back to my head, which I had forgotten for a while. And now I'm thinking, well, how could I actually undress? It's all about reveals in burlesque. We are kind of a little bit of engineers, in burlesque, because you don't just create the most amazing costume and then you go on stage and then you leave the stage with that. We have to engineer how we get out of the costumes, so it's like the extra step, because that's what you're gonna do on stage. So eventually I'll be somewhere, maybe in a science museum, which is also something I love, and then I'll see a mechanism, and I'll say, maybe I could use that in order to release parts of my dress. And those things will just eventually come together at different time and space, but they will be joining in my head. And like, how freaking amazing is that? It's unbelievable. I'm always so excited about how fantastic our brains are and humans are and life is. These two things might have never come together if it wasn't for me, and that happens to all of us. This is like the magic we bring on stage. It's all about when I watch someone that has something really cool, I'm like, how did they think of that? That's so cool, It's and if this performer didn't exist, these two things might have never come together, and I'm so grateful it did. Um, so yeah, it feels like a bit. The time is also a funny thing because things will come together at different times. It's not because I saw this dress at this time that I'm sure to make it happen. You know, 1 year later, maybe 5 years from now, I will discover something. I'm like, that could work. So yeah, back to inspiration. That's one way. Another way that I draw a lot of inspiration from is music, of course, especially lyrics. I'm actually a linguist, so that was the first degree that I got at university, and language is very important to me. I love writing, and of course, as you can see, I love speaking. And just language in general I also find fascinating. That's why I told you about computer language and etc. Anything that's related to it, how we learn languages, how we communicate, and everything related to throat and speaking and being out there and grammar and the way it makes us think, and whether the way we speak and the language we speak influences the way we see things, because we are always thinking in words, and I know it's not all of us, which is also fascinating. But when you're thinking in words, are you seeing the world and telling yourself in a way that your language allows you to? Like there is all of these discussions, and it's fantastic. Um, so lyrics are very important to me. My favorite band is the Counting Crows, and one thing, the lead singer who also writes a lot of their songs, he is also an English major, so his lyrics are very deep, and he uses amazing puns, and sometimes he uses I don't even remember the names, but when things you pronounce sound like the thing you want to say. Like when you say whistle, you kind of have to whistle to pronounce whistle. Um, and and when someone gets the right word, ooh, for me, it's kind of like, oh, I get off on that. um, Meaning, I get really inspired by lyrics. They make me feel a certain way. So when I find a song that has the lyrics that hit just right, whew, I'll have those moments and probably want to choreograph to that. So I feel very inspired. That's how I pick songs for my classes too. So these things are connected. So the song that I teach in class, very almost more often than not, will end up becoming an act, even if it's a short act, that I do just for a special gig, or if it's an act that I will actually develop and work more on. It's not uncommon for classes. And then, of course, I choreograph different. We're going to talk about it in the future. Like, choreographing for yourself and choreographing for someone else is very different. But yeah, lyrics and just speaking music is a lot of inspiration too. Then my like biggest act, the like award-winning act, actually came from a picture and an idea. I actually think the idea came first. I've always been fascinated by silhouettes, and at different points in life, I had ideas related to it. I remember having this, I think maybe it was during the development of my first act. I wanted to have this crane on stage and just do things behind the screen. I think I saw a video. I think I saw a video on Instagram or something. And you can only see the silhouette, because I find the female form really beautiful. So, like this kind of hourglass. So I was always fascinated by it. And just browsing Etsy, I found like hats. And then I was like, well, you can do a lot with hats. And I found a skirt. And I didn't even have anything for this skirt, but I ordered because I really wanted to have that skirt. And then eventually I had the whole thing together. I had the skirt and I had the hat. And actually, these are two separate acts, to be honest. The skirt was actually very interesting because I have worn it for different acts and I'm still not happy with where it's going, either of them. So it will maybe be on a third act or who knows. But the hat idea stuck with me, and I had this thing for Audrey Hepburn. I think I was at the time that I was watching her movies. And of course, she has the little Tiffany hair. And I'm a big fan of Tiffany's. Actually, my keys and neck, I have a few pieces of jewelry from Tiffany's because I find them really elegant. So it was, as you can see, it's a lot of small puzzle pieces coming together. Audrey Hepburn, the hat. And I got the hat, like that was kind of made out of the hat she wore for breakfast at Tiffany's. And then I was like, oh, I wanted to watch this movie because I love Tiffany's. And I've always been a fan of being elegant and the silhouette kind of thing. And then I had this dress. And the dress is from a local shop here in Zurich. They have the most amazing vintage. If you're in Zurich, it's called Meine Garderobe. They're lovely to start with. They have a lot of nice things. And then here we go. We have this, and then I found a dress there that I just loved. And I was like, well, maybe I could wear these two together. And then I started looking for a song. I Google a lot, especially when I'm looking for, because Counting Crows is the band I grew up with. So it just comes to me. A lot of the inspiration I get from burlesque, because I started burlesque much later in life, comes from Googling and from the classes I've taken and from watching other performers and knowing their songs. So I was just Googling literally like burlesque music. And of course, I found the Mooch, which is classic. And then I started playing with it, which is like the way I choreograph, by the way, which is, in the future I'll also talk about it. And then that's the inspiration and the picture. And then I started to create a vision board for that act. And then, of course, you start Googling things. And I Googled big hat woman silhouette and so on. And I found the most amazing pictures, like that had a bit of the vision that I had. And then I started from there. And actually, I'm in love with the result. And there are some pictures of me on stage that I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted. And it developed in a very funny way. It's very different today from what it was when I first performed. Um, Quite different. And yeah, so there was a different way to get inspired. But I think it comes so as a piece of advice. I don't know, if you're looking for inspiration, trust me, you have it. You have all the tools. All you need to do is to pay attention. Observing. There is something the Swiss do, which I find very interesting. If you go to restaurants and especially the cafes or bars at the main street here, you see that their chairs are not the way they put their tables. It's not that you sit and you face each other. they put the tables in a way that you're facing the street. So you're actually just watching people. And I remember when I first moved to Switzerland, because now I'm Swiss, but I wasn't born here. I remember noticing that. It was very interesting. Someone told me, yeah, observing people, watching people is a national sport. I don't even remember who said that to me. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I invite you to do the same. Just, it's not like you have to change your life to feel inspired, You already have it all. You can be inspired while cooking. You can be inspired while on your way to work. You can be inspired on your holiday. Sometimes I have this impression that people feel like they have to get out of their ways to just be inspired. And nowadays we have this beautiful technology thing, like we have a phone and we have on Google Maps, I think you can actually take virtual tours of many places. So you can even go to your favorite museum in the world, just like with this piece of technology in your hand. It's amazing. So yeah, just open your eyes and watch, and it comes, because these pieces will come together. I don't think any of these things happened on purpose. It was just me living my life, and eventually it came like, oh, it would be cool to do that. And once you decide you want to do something, your brain is going to start searching for it. And it's like, yeah, let me gather all of these memories and make it work. And that's it. So that's my video on inspiration, my vlog, and welcome to my vlog. Let's see how it goes. Thank you for watching. Bye. Be inspired.